You guys, I just finished the most incredible interview with the king of conservative content, Larry Elder. This man ran for president. He ran for governor. Decades of conservative talk show, radio commentary. We go through the Donald Trump, Elon Musk fight. Can we trust Congress with the big, beautiful bill? Why it must pass in order for Trump to have his final 2 years be effective. We also dig into how mad Obama is about Kamala Harris, his influence losing steam in the Democrat Party, and how they are regrouping to take down the Republicans and Trump. Check it out. I'm just going to ask you guys, please share this with family and friends. Give it a like and enjoy. Okay, today I have a special guest to go through some explosive news, in my opinion, with Trump, Elon Musk, this big, beautiful bill, the debt, all of that. Larry Elder, thank you for coming on again.
It is my pleasure. Thank you for having me back.
Absolutely. You and I, we got to meet at AmFest in person. I've got the photo, I've got the criminal evidence, and our last video did over 1.8 million views. So I appreciate you coming back. People enjoy your insight. For those that don't know, Larry Elder has been doing conservative radio for decades. He's a pioneer in podcasting. He has his own show, Larry Elder, and we'll make sure to put links to all of that. I want to jump right in on this big story because people are now saying, wait a minute, we love Elon Musk, we love Donald Trump. Is this friendship falling apart? He was just given the keys to the White House, said that he was the reason that Trump won, and now there's this big battle over the big, beautiful bill. What do you make of all of this?
Well, Elon Musk is upset because the big, beautiful bill has a whole lot of big spending in it. Some of the so-called Inflation Reduction Act is still there. The Green New Deal stuff is still there. And his guy is all about efficiency. He comes from the private sector. He's used to saying jump and having people say how high, and that's not how government works. It was destined to be conflict between him and Donald Trump. When Donald Trump ran in 2016, he did something that few Republicans in recent times have done, and that is to say absolutely nothing about the so-called entitlements programs, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. In fact, the only thing he said about health care is that we're going to repeal the Obamacare, quote, and replace it with something better, close quote, as if you're taking one cereal box off the shelf and putting another one to replace it. What replaces it is the private sector, but nobody wants to talk about healthcare in the private sector because half the country believes healthcare is a right. It is not, but that is what half the country believes. So woe to anybody who tries to do something about Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, because that's what's driving the debt. And that's what's driving the deficit. If you look at the spoke wheel called government spending, roughly half of it is so-called entitlement spending, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. Another quarter or so is defense. The rest of it is interest on the debt. A little sliver is so-called discretionary spending. And if you can eliminate all of that, you're still not going to put much of a dent into the $36 trillion debt and rising. That's the deal. I'm giving you a long answer, Stephen, as I always do, but one of the reasons I ran for president is because I wanted to talk about something that we need to do in order to get our handle on the debt and deficit and the size of the government. And that is an amendment to the United States Constitution that would limit spending to a certain percentage of the GDP. I would say no more than 10%, with possible exceptions for war and for natural disaster. Otherwise, you're never, ever, ever going to get your handle around the spending because so much of it is unsustainable. Bill Clinton referred to the entitlements program as unsustainable. That's the word he used. Barack Obama used the word unsustainable, but nothing ever happens because if you run promising to do anything about Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, even if you're promising to only do it for people who are in their 20s, you're going to get your butt kicked because the other side is going to accuse you of throwing granny off the cliff. That's why nothing ever gets done. The only way you're going to be able to do it is with an amendment to the Constitution, which will take a number of years to educate the American people so that people will support this. The number one agenda of most politicians is to get elected. Number two is to get reelected. You do not get elected saying, I'm going to alter your Social Security, especially if you're on it or soon to be on it. That's what happened. George W. Bush at campaign promising to put financial integrity into the Social Security system. He had a bill, had a proposal to allow a younger worker to put a certain percentage of their contribution into a savings account to get a greater return. Got his butt kicked. Nancy Pelosi accused him of privatizing Social Security, and the other Republicans who initially supported the plan engaged in the exercise that most Republicans love engaging in, which is running for the hills. That's the problem.
Okay. So I've seen this meme online where one person is over here, one person is over here, and they're looking at a number on the ground. And to this person, it looks like a 6, and to this person, it looks like a 9. And then they argue, no, it's a 6, no, it's a 9. That's kind of how I see Trump and Elon Musk right now. Is they each have a perspective. Trump has more experience with government, but Elon Musk has experience with efficiency. I think where many people are confused is Trump is saying, we're going to lower the deficit. We're going to, make this big, beautiful bill. And Elon Musk is saying, wait a minute, there's nothing big and beautiful about putting us in further debt. You're supposed to spend less money. And now there's a lot of people going, hey, wait a minute, we're mad at Congress. And they're kind of taking Elon Musk's side, but right. They love Donald Trump. And so they're kind of stuck not knowing, is it a 6 or a 9? Yeah. Your thoughts on that?
That's a good way of putting it. Elon Musk is absolutely right. The bill contains a lot of spending. The cuts are measly. But Donald Trump has a bigger agenda. He has to govern. He wants to do something about the border, and the bill has a lot of stuff in there about the border. He wants to extend the Trump tax cuts. And of course, the bill does that. That's what Donald Trump is primarily concerned about. Again, the man, Donald Trump, is a populist. He's not a libertarian. He's not a limited government guy. He never campaigned for that. As I said earlier, in 2016, he didn't say one word about the debt or about the deficit, because the bottom line is most people do not care about the debt and the deficit. They care about whether or not their incomes are exceeding inflation. Am I better off now than I was last year? Is the country on the right track or on the wrong track? That's what people care about. They couldn't care less about the debt and the deficit because they haven't connected the two between the debt and deficit and GDP growth. In 1900, government at all three levels took less than 10% from the American people in taxes, federal, state, and local. Now it takes 32%. And if you put a cost on so-called government mandates, government takes almost half what the American people produce. And there's a relationship between how much the government takes and what our GDP growth is. We used to have growth at 4, 5, 6, 7% per year prior to the income tax, which was an amendment to the Constitution. If you left more money in the pockets of the American people, our economy would skyrocket. If you make the case to the American people and they understand the connection between how much government takes and its deleterious effect on growth, maybe then they would be concerned about the size of government. But they haven't made that connection because the politicians have not educated them to the extent that people who have jobs, they're not watching CNN, they're not watching Fox News, they're not reading Milton Friedman, they don't get it. But if you let them know the more money that's in your pocket, the better off you're going to be. That's why we need to downsize government. I believe that you'll get a groundswell so that ultimately there could be this kind of amendment that I mentioned.
Okay. Right now, Trump is really high in the favorability. He's rising among Democrats for the first time in Rasmussen polling history. They say we're on the right track as a nation. I would hate to see that go backwards. At the same time, you have way more experience than I do. You've run for president, you've run for governor, you've been talking politics for decades. But just as a newbie, I'm sitting here going, I feel like President Trump has these big goals, but he's kind of handcuffed by the behavior of Congress. Congress is the one that's letting people down when it comes to not cutting the bill, but Trump is kind of handcuffed because he doesn't have the ability to affect the money side. That's Congress's job. Am I kind of correct?
Well, I guess I look at it somewhat differently. Again, look at the 2024 election. What were the top agendas? The economy. What was the second biggest agenda? Borders. That's what Donald Trump was hired to do. Make sure that our economy grows and make sure the border is secured. Mission number 2 was done within 30 days. Now, Donald Trump wants to concentrate on number 1. And that's why he's doing these tariffs. He believes, and I think ultimately he may be proved correct, that by pressuring our trading partners to lower their tariffs, it's going to help us economically. He wants the tax cuts extended. He would like tax cuts even reduced. That's what he cares about. The rest of it, in my opinion, he never really cared about. I don't remember him saying, when I get into office, I'm going to eliminate the debt and deficit. I don't recall him saying that. That's not what he was saying at all during the debates. What he was saying is government's too big. You spent too much. We have inflation. We have sluggish GDP, and we have 10, 15, 20 million people coming in the country illegally, and I'm going to turn that around. That's what Donald Trump is all about, which is why I believe, Stephen, his numbers are improving. People aren't saying, wow, you're at 53% or 54% according to Trafalgar. And if you were to do something about Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, you might get to be 60%. People are talking about that. They care about whether or not they are getting ahead. Am I getting ahead compared to what I was at the end of the Biden administration? And right now, consumer confidence is up, job approval is up, the inflation is down, gas prices are down, egg prices are dramatically down. That's why Donald Trump, in my opinion, is doing so well in the polls. The rest of it, down the road, as I said before, I believe these entitlement programs desperately need to be reformed, but you have to make the case to the American people. If you reform them, it will benefit economic growth. There'll ultimately be more money in your pockets. Until people see that connection, they're not going to care about that. And any politician will be vulnerable to the attacks by the left, which is you don't care about old people, you don't care about sick people, you don't care about elderly people. You want to throw granny off the roof by touching Medicare, by touching Medicaid.
Okay. It's interesting because there is a case I heard, I can't remember who it was, but they said, one reason America stays so strong is our military. Another reason is we carry the most debt at the bank, right? So maybe that debt actually gives us leverage on a global scale, but look how much money President Trump has committed to come in to create jobs, investment, new factories, employment opportunities. What I'm hearing from you is a lot of this is noise. He's focusing on signal, which is my wallet hurting like it was under Biden, or is it feeling relief and actually feeling better under Donald Trump? Is that fair?
That's right. Look at the right track, wrong track numbers. Okay. 2/3 of Americans thought we were on the wrong track at the end of the Biden administration. Now, for the first time in a very long time, the majority of Americans feel that we're on the right track. And that's what Donald Trump is concerned about. And that's what Elon Musk is less concerned about. So I also think it's probably true, and Donald Trump said this today, that one of the things Elon Musk is upset about is that subsidies, tax credits for electric vehicles is being stripped out, while the subsidies for gas and oil still remains. And he's upset about that. And I can understand if I'm the CEO of a big company, the founder of a big company that manufactures EVs, taking away the incentive to purchase an EV would cheese me off a lot. So I have a feeling that's part of it as well. Look, Ronald Reagan ran in 1980 promising to cut this, cut that. One of the things on the chopping block was the Department of Education, which was formed under Jimmy Carter just a few years earlier. We don't need a federal Department of Education. It's low-hanging fruit. 8 years after Trump got into office, the Department of Education was still there, and it was bigger than ever. It is very, very difficult to cut anything in government. The low-hanging fruit stuff, Department of Education. Another one is Amtrak, for crying out loud. Amtrak loses money every single year, yet we still subsidize it. NPR, PBS, why in the world, in a world where there are 500 channels, are we subsidizing 2 channels, particularly those that are left-wing, so taxpayer dollars are putting forth agenda that insults them? We can't even shut that down. Planned Parenthood, why are we spending money, taxpayer money, for Planned Parenthood that pays for abortions? And yet we're still doing that. My point is, Stephen, government fights back. Big government fights back. Bureaucracies fight back. It is very, very difficult to truly cut government, which is why I go back to what I said when I first started with you. The only way to really get our handles on this is for an amendment that makes it a law that government has to be a certain size. That way politicians can go to their voters and say, look, I had to cut this. I had to reform this. Don't blame me. I had to do it by law. That's the only way this is ever going to get done.
Okay. Yeah, that is really interesting, because otherwise, like you said, job 1, get elected. Job 2, get reelected. Like if they can't take their focus off of election all of the time, right, then things continue to go downhill. Let me ask you this. How much of President Biden's presidency was really a third term of Barack Obama? I ask that because every day that goes by, we're finding out how much Biden's staff was running the country, how much his staff was making decisions, approving money, policy, foreign relations,
Right.
pardons, for heaven's sakes. All of this seemed to be staff. And one of my guests brought up Barack Obama almost never visited Joe Biden. When he did, he basically ignored him, but he was meeting with staff and people in Washington, D.C. all of the time. What are your thoughts on Obama's influence over the Biden presidency? Excited to share with you guys an incredible scientific breakthrough to support our long-term health and wellness. C15 is the first essential fatty acid to be discovered in 90 years. And get this, studies have confirmed that it has 3 times better, broader, and safer application than omega-3 fatty acids. Now, Fatty 15 co-founder Dr. Stephanie Venn Watson discovered C15 while working with the U.S. Navy to continually improve the health and welfare of aging dolphins, of all things, right? Now, C15 works in multiple ways. It repairs age-related damage to cells, protects from future breakdown, boosts mitochondrial energy output. You're going to have more energy, healthier cells. It activates pathways in the body that help regulate sleep, mood, and naturally repair mechanisms that support overall health. This functionality leads to a myriad of exciting benefits now and as we get older, namely improved metabolic, liver, and heart health, smoother functioning joints, deeper sleep, healthier hair, skin, and nails. You guys, this is so important. As you age, almost every doctor has told me to start taking fish oil pills in order to get the omega-3 in me, right? But now, Fatty 15, through the Navy and medicine, they discovered something that is 3 times more powerful. Fatty 15 is on a mission to replenish your C15 levels and restore long-term health. You can get an additional 15% off their 90-day subscription starter kit by going to fatty15.com/Gardner and use code Gardner to get that discount. It's awesome. You guys are going to absolutely love it.
Obama presidency, and you need to look no further than the top 100 positions when Biden came in. 75 of them came out of the Obama-Biden administration. Biden was disrespected by Barack Obama. Barack Obama thinks that Biden is dumb. Remember that book called Game Change, written by Mark Halperin and John Heilman about the 2008 campaign? They quote Barack Obama, he never denied it, who said about his running mate, how many more times is Joe Biden going to say something stupid? You're absolutely right. Obama rarely visited the White House, and when he did, he pretty much ignored Joe Biden. Joe Biden, as Donald Trump has pointed out, he was never one of these climate change extremists. He wasn't a DEI guy. And now all of a sudden, this kind of stuff is done. Why? Because it's Biden staffers that's been doing all of this. And when there were concerns by the left about Biden's decline in cognition, you had people like David Axelrod speaking out. David Axelrod was a Chicago Tribune reporter. He joined the Obama campaign and became one of Obama's top advisors. Axelrod would not have said Jack had not Biden sent him out to say so. And a couple of times, David Axelrod, before everybody else began to say stuff, said a few things about Biden's cognition. That's because Obama wanted Biden out of the way, and he wanted there to be an open convention to challenge the nominee for 2024, which people thought was going to be Donald Trump. Biden didn't go anywhere because Dr. Jill, I think, loved being first lady. And of course, this is Biden's 3rd time running for president. He wanted to be president. He enjoyed the job, and he didn't leave until it was too late.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So then my follow-up question is Obama done? And the reason I ask that is, there's this fracture between Barack and Michelle. She's bitter over honestly, I don't really fully understand it, but I know she didn't like being first lady.
She's bitter over life. She's always been bitter. She
Okay.
goes to Princeton after her high school counselor advised her not to apply because she felt that her stats and grades were not good enough. She got in, and then wrote her senior thesis about how oppressed she felt at Princeton. And she goes to the White House as first lady and complained bitterly about being in the fishbowl, about being first lady. Recently, she said on her podcast with Eric Holder's wife how much they resented the fact that they were at events and people were yearning to shake hands with their illustrious husband. That's the term she used, and ignoring them. She's always been a very unhappy, bitter, moody kind of person. She even once said that for 10 years, this is just something she said, I couldn't stand. That's the way she put it, Barack Obama. Who says that? For 10 years, I couldn't stand my husband. Didn't like politics, didn't want him to run for a state senate, tried to talk him out of it, didn't want him to run for the House of Representatives, which he did and lost, tried to talk him out of it, didn't want him to run for U.S. Senate, and for what I can tell, didn't want him to run for president. He did anyway. So she's always been a reluctant political wife, which has to put a huge strain on your marriage. Most politicians have wives who are cheering them. Hubert Humphrey, Nancy Reagan. These are wives that had your back and they enjoyed the fight. When you have somebody who doesn't, you're struggling with them, it's probably going to be a strain on the marriage. I don't know, but it seems to me that it probably would be. Your question, though, is Obama still relevant? Notice how he hasn't said one word about reparations, something that the Democrats, most of the Democrats support. Throughout his career, he opposed reparations, hasn't said one word about it. Obama even referred to the so-called entitlements programs, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, as unsustainable. Donald Trump and Elon Musk and the Republicans are taking a stab at doing something about it. You haven't heard him say one word. And this is a guy who, in my opinion, is the number one reason why blacks and whites still believe that racism remains a major problem. He gets elected. By the way, this is something that I've often talked about. He got elected with 52% of the vote. When he walked into the Oval Office the third week of January 2009, before he cast a single vote, some polls put his approval rating at 80%. There's an article in the LA Times where I am, headline, Obama approval at 80%. Now, why would suddenly you get elected with 52%, you walk into the Oval Office, haven't signed a single executive order, haven't signed a single bill, your approval is at 80%? Because so many people who didn't vote for Obama said, okay, I don't want Obamacare. I don't want my capital gains taxes raised. I don't want taxes raised, which is what he promised to do. He attacked the war in Iraq, which at the time was still popular. But at least he'll stop the nonsense about America being systemically racist. At least he'll calm down the racial waters in America. When Obama gave that speech in 2004 in Boston to introduce John Kerry, the nominee, I was there. And he gave this funny little guy, funny skinny little guy with funny ears and a funny name, comes out and gives this rafter-ringing speech where he says, there's no blue America, there's no red America, there's just one America, United States of America. People went nuts. There's no black America, there's no white America, there's just one America, United States of America. People went nuts. I turned to my producer and said, I don't know who this man is, but someday he's going to run for president and someday he's going to get elected. I didn't know it was going to be that soon. And when he was running, he was at a black church. And this is very important. He talked about how much racism he thought there was still in America. And he said, the Moses generation, referring to the generation of MLK, has gotten us 90% of the way there. My generation, he said, the Joshua generation, has to get us an additional 10%, which, Stephen, I thought was reasonable. There was a Fox News poll a few years before that. 8% of Americans thought Elvis is still alive. 6% thought if you send him a letter, he'll get it. So 8% of Americans you have to write off. So maybe that's that 2% you can tackle. Also, Senator Obama gave an interview to 60 Minutes, his first one. He was not yet, he had not yet caught up with Hillary in the primary, but he was gaining. Otherwise, 60 Minutes wouldn't have had him on. And Steve Croft, the correspondent, said, Senator, if you don't win this race, will it be because of your race? And I said to myself, let's see how this man answers this question, because it'll tell you everything you need to know about him. And much to my surprise and pleasure, Obama said no. If I don't win, it will be because I've not articulated a vision that the American people can embrace. That's the man America thought they hired. When he walked into the Oval Office, both blacks and whites thought race relations would improve. 8 years later, both blacks and whites thought race relations got worse. How did that happen after you elect the first black president? Because for 8 years, he played race card after race card after race card. Well-crafted sentences, elegant sentences, but no different than what Al Sharpton is saying to America. You're racist. The Cambridge police acted stupidly. No, they didn't. If I had a son, he looked like Trayvon. Well, George Zimmerman was found not guilty. There's a place called Ferguson. He said to an address to the United Nations referring to Michael Brown, hands up, don't shoot, big lie. Gave an interview to a podcaster and said, racism is in America's DNA. What? The first time Gallup asked white Americans, would you vote for a president who's black, was in the 50s. Only about 30% said yes. Now only about 4 or 5% said they would not. He had Al Sharpton to the White House over 70 or 80 times. He embraced Black Lives Matter, which is a complete refutation of what made blacks move forward after slavery. After slavery, blacks embraced Judeo-Christian values. They embraced entrepreneurship. They embraced American values, even though America wasn't being fair to black people. And more importantly, it was rare for a black child to enter the world without a black and mother married to each other in the house. On Black Lives Matter website, they attacked the nuclear family. Their founders are self-described trained Marxists. Marxist was an atheist who by definition did not believe in capitalism. And of course, they're not Judeo-Christians. So every single thing that allowed black people to move forward is under attack by Black Lives Matter, an organization that Barack Obama embraced. And finally, and I'll shut up, his AG was Eric Holder. Eric Holder said, when it comes to matters of race, quote, America has been a nation of cowards, close quote. I don't even know what that means. And he gave a speech. Remember when Donald Sterling, the owner of the Clippers, lost his team? The LA Clippers lost his team a few years ago because his girlfriend taped him while he's making some insulting comments about Magic Johnson.
Yes.
Big thing, the NBA took his team away. By the way, he never used the N-word, although the girlfriend tried to get him to say it. She did everything but hold up cue cards to get him to say the N-word. He didn't say it. They took away his team. During that period of time, Eric Holder gave a speech, and he referred to it. He said, you know, when there's blatant racism in America, we got that covered. What we have to tackle is pernicious racism, his term. And he gave 3 examples, Steve, each of which was bogus. Example number 1 of pernicious racism, he said the move for voter ID. Well, guess what? Polls show majority of blacks want voter ID. One poll found the percentage of blacks who want voter ID the same as the percentage of whites who want voter ID. That's an example he gave of pernicious racism. Even the Supreme Court ruled 6-3 that voter ID was legitimate and advanced the integrity of elections. John Paul Stevens, the most liberal member of the Supreme Court, wrote the majority decision. So this guy says voter ID is pernicious racism. Number 2, he talked about the U.S. Sentencing Commission concluding that the average black criminal gets a longer sentence than the average white criminal who commits the same crime. And that is true. What he didn't tell you is that the U.S. Sentencing Commission that he quoted also said the reason for the disparity is legitimate reasons. The average black criminal has more convictions than the average white criminal, and judges take that into consideration. So that's his number 2 example of pernicious racism. Bogus. And number 3, he said black boys in high school get kicked out disproportionately more than white kids in the same high school, which is also true. That's because they act out more. In the 80s, there was a school system in Decatur, Illinois. They kicked out a bunch of black kids who were fighting after the end of a football game. In comes Jesse Jackson, sues the then all-white school board and accuses them of racism. And the all-white school board's lawyers introduced data to show, irrespective of the race of the school board, whether it's Oakland, where all of them were minorities, or us, where we're all white, black boys are kicked out more because they misbehave more. You want to leave them in the classroom and ruin the atmosphere for everybody else, including the other black kids who are behaving properly? This is what you're calling your 3 best examples of pernicious racism, which means to me, Stephen, we must be doing pretty well on the racism front if that's all you got. But number 2, this guy is pushing this nonsense to tell people no matter what we've done, no matter the election of a black president, the only majority white country to ever do so, we're still a racist country. And it's crap and it's nonsense, but it's infused everything. Barack Obama signed an executive order mandating DEI. Biden took it to another level, mandating it in every facet of the American of federal government, and Donald Trump's trying to reverse that. But you can't get away with it without telling white people, feel guilty about the pernicious racism. Stephen Brandon Gill, that Texas lawmaker, freshman lawmaker, really talented guy, was cross-examining for the Doge Committee a woman who got money from a nonprofit. He was quoting some of the crap she said. And he said to her, "Do you believe that I'm a covert racist?" She said, "No." He said, "Well, you wrote that any person who denies systemic racism is a covert racist. I deny systemic racism. Am I a covert racist?" And she wouldn't answer the question. Here, a woman has quoted a person saying, "If you deny racism, you are a covert racist." So you can't win. You can't even deny it. You're still a racist. So this is where we are in the country, in my opinion, because of Barack Obama. Now, I said I was going to shut up. Let me just make one more point, and then I promise I will. The first time Obama had a time to show he was the kind of guy that the American people elected was when his good friend, that professor named Henry Louis Skip Gates from Harvard, got briefly arrested because he came home from vacation, went to his home in Cambridge, not exactly the hood, didn't have his door key, so he and the driver pushed open his door. A neighbor saw it, didn't recognize him as belonging to the house, called 911, which is what you want your neighbors to do. White cop shows up and very politely says to this man in the house, "Please come out and show ID." Instead of cooperating to this perfectly lawful order, the Harvard professor said, "I'll come out if your mama tells me to come out." Ultimately, he got arrested briefly, handcuffed briefly, while the cops sorted it out. What Obama said to the American people, the Cambridge police acted stupidly. What he should have said is, last night, I picked up the phone and I called Skip Gates. By the way, his nickname is Skip. That's how close he and Obama are. They know each other. And I said, "Skip, virtually every one of these high-profile shootings of young black men would have been avoided if the black men had simply cooperated. Why did you just say, 'Yes, sir,' and if you felt that you were mistreated, you can file a complaint later on?" You escalated it. You took it from DEFCON 5 to DEFCON 1, and you had no reason to do that. I told that to Skip Gates, and I'm telling Americans right now, when you're pulled over by the police, cooperate. Most of these high-profile shootings and encounters would have gone away if the suspect civilian had simply cooperated. Instead, he lectured America and basically told the police departments all over America, if you are dealing with a black person, you give them a perfectly lawful order, that person resisted, it's on you because you're a racist. And it pissed off police departments all over the country, and that started this 8-year saga into race card after race card after race card. So do I believe Obama is still relevant? Not on our side, he's not. And I think a lot of people on the left are beginning to wake up, which is why you're finding 20% of black men supporting Donald Trump and about half of the Hispanics supporting Donald Trump. They resent all this DEI crap. America is the least racist majority of white society in the world, provides more opportunities for anybody else. Right now, as we speak, Stephen, people in Haiti are lining up for a lottery, a shot at getting into America. Why? Because America is systemically racist? It's nonsense. But that's the kind of crap that's been pushed by the Democrats and particularly people like Barack Obama, because he's so well educated and so respected.
Okay, thank you for that. Just staying in that same vein, I'm noticing a major shift in the Democrat Party. I think they're down. I don't think they're out. I don't think we can sit back on our laurels.
They're not out. Are you kidding me?
But they've got to be regrouping. I'm just wondering, do they regroup around Obama ideas, or is there someone new? Because most Democrats don't know or like Hakeem Jeffries. Most Democrats don't like Chuck Schumer. I think many Democrats, the voters, are having this come to Jesus moment where they're realizing this isn't the party that I thought I was voting for. I've been abandoned, and they have terrible policies. But what do you think?
The energy is Jasmine Crockett, who referred to the governor of Abbott as Governor Hot Wheels. She also criticized Byron Donalds because he has a white wife. I kid you not. Byron Donalds was having a discussion about the epidemic of fatherlessness, which I think is the number one social problem facing America. And he made the point, which is factually true, that even during Jim Crow, a black kid was more likely to enter the world with a father married to the mother than today. And Jasmine Crockett goes on Charlemagne the God, blasts him and says, maybe he feels he's got some sort of exemption because he's married to a white woman. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? And nobody said anything. Nancy Pelosi said nothing. Chuck Schumer said nothing. The DNC chair said nothing. Here you have a woman essentially condemning somebody for marrying outside of his race, close quote, something that Ketanji Brown Jackson has done, something that Don Lemon has done, something that Frederick Douglass did. Frederick Douglass' second wife was a white woman. So what are you saying, Jasmine Crockett? That is as bigoted a statement as I've ever heard anybody make, up to and including David Duke, but nobody said a word. And the energy is AOC and Ilhan Omar, both of whom are anti-Semitic, have supported the boycott, divest, sanction movement, and the Free Palestine movement. That's where the energy is. Where the common sense and the brain is with people like Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania. And I don't see him making any kind of inroads. I don't see him being perceived as a leader of the party. He should be. That should have been Kamala Harris's running mate. But I don't see that being the energy. The energy is, I hate Donald Trump's guts, and basically virtually everything he does, we're going to oppose. So you tell me where the party is going to go. I think that they're drifting along. Bernie Sanders has criticized the party for abandoning the working class, but Bernie Sanders is a self-described Democrat socialist. He's practically a communist. What's his plan? Raise taxes on rich people, free college tuition, free health care. What's his solution? So he's a loony on the left. So I don't know where they go. I really don't. And I'm loving it.
Do you remember one of the talking points against Trump was, if he wins, he will block interracial marriage. Yeah. And then there's a Republican who's in an interracial marriage. What do? Instead of supporting him, they put him on blast.
Yes. So again, and more importantly, where are the people condemning this kind of stuff? If Donald Trump said something about Byron Donalds because he's married to a white woman, he'd have to go into hiding for several days. Even Donald Trump would, because our side would blast him. But their side has said absolutely nothing about what Jasmine Crockett said about Governor Hot Wheels. Remember when Donald Trump allegedly mocked a disabled reporter? He didn't, but he was accused of doing so. In August of 2016, before the election, Bloomberg had a poll, and they asked people who did not like Donald Trump, what's the number one reason for not liking him? The number one reason was that he supposedly mocked a disabled reporter. The reporter never even accused him of mocking him. Donald Trump did not mock him. He mocked his retreat from a story. He wasn't ridiculing his disability. Yet, if you often talk to a lot of people who hate Donald Trump, they will cite that as a reason. Yet here a woman is mocking somebody who was jogging. A tree fell on him, and it paralyzed him from the waist down. He was consigned to a wheelchair since then, and you're calling him Governor Hot Wheels, and nobody on the left said anything at all? She hasn't apologized? I mean, Scotty, beam me up.
Yeah. Okay. Let me stay with the Democrat Party, because this one kind of shocked me, but also didn't really shock me. Former White House press secretary Karine Jean-Pierre lied on behalf of Joe Biden.
Right.
Turns out, according to her own words, she wasn't even meeting with him. So telling us he's smart, he's with it, she's struggling to keep up. Later, after the debate, she admits, I didn't know any of this. I was literally just talking points given to me by a third-party person. Now she's leaving the Democrat Party. She proudly lied on behalf of to become an independent. Help me understand this.
Well, it is no shock to anybody that she lied. I mean, you can look at Joe Biden during his term, and you see the guy can't walk up and down Air Force One. He stumbles on a stage. He forgets the names of leaders. He forgets the time certain things happened. The debate exposed him for not being home. The lie that we can't keep up with him. He's exhausting all of his young staffers. We always knew that was a lie. It's so patently obvious, particularly because of Jake Tapper's book. She has to fess up now. As to why she's left the Democratic Party, I haven't read her book. I don't know what her rationale is. I'm sure she'll be giving interviews to explain why, but I have no idea why. Does she believe that government's too big? I doubt it. Does she believe that rich people are overtaxed, which they are? I doubt it. Does she believe that taxes should be lowered? I doubt it. Does she no longer believe that climate change is, as her boss put it, an existential threat to the world? I doubt it. I can't figure out what ideological epiphany she's had that made her want to leave the Democratic Party. It'll be fascinating to see. But she's been lying. And let's face it, Biden won in 2020, campaigning from his basement. He could barely read teleprompter. He had all sorts of handlers, and he still kept making all sorts of mistakes. He wasn't there even then. So the whole administration has been a big fraud to the American people. I have no idea who made all these decisions, particularly the pardon decisions near the end of his term. And I doubt that we'll ever find out. We still don't know who leaked the Supreme Court decision. We still don't know who put the cocaine in the White House. So in my opinion, you're never going to get to the bottom of whether or not Joe Biden gave authority for the auto pen. Somebody will say he did. Somebody will say he didn't. He'll say he already put out a statement and said that he and he alone made all the decisions. Repeat the line. I tweeted that a little while ago, Stephen. I said, statement from Joe Biden about the alleged use of the auto pen. I and I alone made all the decisions of my presidency. Repeat the line.
Oh my gosh. What do you think's going to happen with that auto pen? I know you've got, I believe his name's Ed Martin, who they blocked for being U.S. Attorney of D.C. Now he's over that, and he's saying, you know what? I think there's a real case to unravel some of these. Do you think that will happen?
I don't. I think that it's important for us to get to the bottom of it, if only to shed light on how we were lied to, and in my opinion, to undermine the credibility of the Democratic Party, which, by the way, is now at an all-time low in terms of approval rating since they have been asking this question. So I like the idea of exposing Democrats for lying and lying and lying. But do I believe that any of these decisions are going to be reversed? How do you unpardon a pardon? I don't know how you do that.
Yeah, that's kind of my thinking is like, in a perfect world, I think we would get Fauci. In a perfect world, we would get the Biden family, some of these others. But if nothing else, if history can at least be written truthfully, that these people were criminals, that they took advantage of the taxpayer, they lied, they did so much damage, that might be the only justice we get in this life. I could live with that. I could live with that. But if they get, if it's written about them that they were these magnanimous, incredible people, I just think that's a double loss.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think we need to set the record straight so we know what happened. But in terms of it having a real practical effect on the decisions that were made, I doubt it. I doubt that Joe Biden signed the Inflation Reduction Act. Later on, he even said we shouldn't have called it that. We should have called it what it really was, which was a climate change policy. Well, you're the one who signed it. You didn't raise that issue when you signed it. And I remember what Mike Johnson said when he finally got a one-on-one with Joe Biden after trying to get a meeting with him for a long time. He comes to the White House and he says he walks into the room and there are a whole bunch of staffers there. He thought he was going to have a one-on-one with Biden. And he said, Mr. President, can I talk to you privately? And Biden dismissed his staffers. And he said that the staffers audibly gasped when they were told to leave the room. So two of them were there privately. And he said, Mr. President, I got to ask you something. Why did you sign this executive order banning the export of liquid natural gas? And Biden, I didn't do that. I said, Mr. President, yes, you did. I'm in Louisiana, and a lot of people that are involved in that business are hurt. I didn't do that. Mr. President, we can walk over to your secretary right now. She can print out the executive order. You signed it. And then Biden went, LNG. No, I signed an executive order to study it. Mr. President, no, you didn't. And then Johnson later on said, I realized he was not lying. He did not know he signed it. Now, Johnson did not say that until after the election. It might have been done some good if he had said something then, but he didn't. But the point is that at least when it comes to that particular executive order, Biden had no blooming idea that he signed it.
Okay. Yeah, that was a shocker to me. The other big shocker was that Biden had left American astronauts in space. Those two stories, I was like, what? This is absolutely crazy. Okay, final question, Larry. Are Republicans doing enough to maintain the majority in Congress, or is this going to be a tough midterm election?
It's going to be a tough midterm election. History shows that the party out of power usually gains around an average of 25 seats during the off-year election like this. It's just the way it is. People are pushed back. People get upset. The other side will inevitably attack the decisions that you're making, rightly or wrongly. It's going to be tough for us to maintain the House majority. And if so, then Donald Trump will be impeached again. There'll be a bunch of hearings, and not a whole lot will get done. But as long as the tax cuts are extended, as long as the border is secured, and as long as our GDP grows and the tariffs ultimately prove to be economically beneficial, I think we're going to be just fine down the road. But it'll be very, very difficult to maintain control of the House, no matter what President Trump does.
I do think, although I agree with the zeal of Elon Musk, I believe there are major parts of the big, beautiful bill that if they get through, it does help us keep the majority, because you can say, you voted against this. It's on record. We voted for the tax, to stay in place. We voted for the drops. We got gas prices down. We got eggs down. We got food down. We got interest rates down. All of those things are necessary in order to keep Trump able to affect anything in his his last 2 years.
Stephen, all of that is correct. And I must say, having watched politics for a very long time, I was astonished that Trump got the so-called big, beautiful bill past the line in the House. You have the so-called House Freedom Caucus. I think that were 25, 30 Republicans that truly believe in limited government. There's nothing about this bill that's limited government, yet somehow, some way, Donald Trump, because he is the man, because he is that big figure in the room, was able to pressure these Republicans to stick together and pass it. I was amazed. I thought ultimately it was going to break apart, and they would get passed. They would do the money for the borders. They would get the money for extending. They would get the votes to extend the tax cuts, and maybe get them lowered even more. But I really did not think the whole bill was going to hold together. And now that it's gone to Congress, you've got Ron Johnson, you've got Rand Paul. These are not stupid people. You've got Elon Musk, who's a genius, all attacking the bill. And now Marjorie Taylor Greene has now done a 180 on it. She supported the bill, and now she says she regrets having signed it. Well, she must be feeling the heat from her constituents and feeling the heat from people talking about all the spending that's in the bill. So I think that there's a good chance it's going to break apart, and there'll be certain parts that pass and certain parts that don't pass. And that's pretty much about what I kind of thought was going to happen. Because, again, most Americans don't care about the debt, don't care about the deficit. They do care about taxes. They do care about the borders. And they do care about whether or not inflation is going to be tamed, gas prices, these kinds of things. And if the bill tackles those, and I believe it will and has, most Americans are good to go.
Okay. All right. Well, that's why
You haven't said, by the way, anything about my extraordinary documentary, Electric Vehicles, the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Oh, tell us about it right now. I was just about to say, how do we listen to your show?
Well, I did a documentary. It took me about a year to do it for Impactful Films. It's called Electric Vehicles, the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Stephen, before I did the documentary, I had no really idea about EVs. I'd never driven one. I kind of assumed that based on what I heard, they were better for the planet than gas-powered cars. And so I began a Judy Garland journey to see the wizard. And I met with about 50 different experts, physicists, scientists, engineers, people that are involved in the auto industry to ask whether or not EVs are good, bad, or ugly. The good part is the technology is amazing. I start out the documentary by going to a major auto show and meet a bunch of people that are selling EVs, and the technology is stunning. The cars can go from nothing to nothing, 0 to 60 in a nanosecond. More importantly, the self-driving technology has the potential to save a lot of lives. We lose about 40,000 people on the roads every single year, largely because of driver errors. This has the potential to reduce that by almost 90% if everybody were to have self-driving technology. So that's a good. The bad is it takes fossil fuel generated energy to manufacture an EV, to transport an EV, and to charge an EV. So the overall carbon footprint is probably not any smaller than a gas-powered car. It may not be in your face, it'll be somewhere else in the world, but the carbon footprint itself is about the same size. Then there's the ugly. and that is the dependence on China for the chips that go into the car, and the dependence on China to produce, mine, or manufacture the rare earth minerals that go into the battery, or they control areas in the world that produces and manufactures and mines this stuff, like Republic of the Congo, where kids, slave labor, $1, $2 a day, using their bare hands to pull out the cobalt, which is toxic. I think if most people who own EVs or thinking about owning an EV knew about the humanitarian aspects of it, it might make them think twice. So it's making us more dependent upon China, our number one geopolitical foe. It is exploiting Black kids in Africa who are endangering their health, by the way, because this stuff is toxic. And I think if you look at everything into it, maybe, just maybe, you might want to rethink your attitude that EVs are better for the planet on a cost basis and on a humanitarian basis. And also, finally, the big, beautiful bill removes the subsidies for EVs, which is one of the reasons I believe Elon Musk is upset. Question whether or not these things would even be marketable, but for the tax incentives that manufacturers get and buyers get for purchasing an EV. So you look at all these kinds of things, which we did in the documentary, electric vehicles, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And it sounds like it's a boring documentary. It's not. It's very entertaining and I think very informative. And the reviews have been off the charts. You can see it by going to salemnow.com, salemnow.com.
Okay, I will put that. And then how do people catch your show?
Well, I'm syndicated in virtually every major market. Just go to my website, larryelder.com, and you'll be able to find it in your hood.
Okay, I will put that down below, as well as a direct link to the documentary. Larry, thank you for what you do. You have been a voice of common sense for decades. We appreciate it. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Last thing, I was called by the LA Times writer the black face of white supremacy when I ran in the recall election. As you know, Stephen, you and I have talked about that. I now have black face of white supremacy merch t-shirts on LarryElderShop.com. Be the first in your hoodie to get a black face of white supremacy hoodie.
Oh my gosh. Don't you love how they can spin words? It's like
unbelievable.
At some point you have to go, all right, well, good use of the English language, but it's a lie.
A lie, right?
Thank you, Larry. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Stephen, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. God bless.